introduce the thematically aspects of this particular. Over to you, Vikas.
Okay, thank you, Jaydev. Thank you all the participants who they have spared their valuable time to listen to our elder brother, Professor Kamalakant Das. So today's topic is really very vital, and it is also related to the present context, that is foreign relation and diplomacy. So we all know that diplomacy is one of the tools in foreign policy. So diplomacy is a means and method to achieve the goals in foreign policy. So today's context is related to all these things, and the diplomacy involves actually, sophistication of language based on deep dive knowledge on one state's history, economy, polity, science, tech, environment, and many aspects. And now it's the border also. So today, as we know that we are facing, that deep problem. You can say tensions with border issue with China in Galwan Valley that we all know. There are tensions. So today we have with us two eminent person. One is Joydev, who is also working on international relation and foreign relation. He will introduce in the beginning thematically about issues, and just after that we will be listening to Professor Das. So Professor Das is a leading television commentator on Odia News television on issues of foreign policy, national security, and international relation. He is teaching public policy and management at Sri Sri University and a visiting professor at NLEO, Cuttack. So at the international level, he has been associated in the past with Carnegie Council, New York, and World Parliament of Religions, Chicago. So I firmly welcome from our Amopress family, so which family is basically founded by our dear Mr. Deepak Kumar Das, Indian Economic Service Officer. So who has able to join all of us to discuss on various topics in every week. And our main objective of this forum is to make our students and participants learn. It is nothing to do with any kind of political or other objectives. So this is purely for educational purpose. So I would like to give the stage to Mr. Jaydev. So please, Jaydev, you start your part, and after that we will invite Professor Das, and we'll keep the discussion for at least 1 hour, and after that we'll take questions by which you, Professor Das, can answer, or you could also bit answer. So I would like to ask you, Jaydev, so please come to the stage and give your thematic perspective on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Vikas Kumar Malik. I think I will not take much time between the speaker, the eminent speaker, and me, because Mr. Kamalakant Das sir has a lot of experience in this particular field. But in speaking to India-China relation, I'd like to make 8 headings or 8 points where I can discuss or I can focus on India-China relations. So when we talk about India-China relation, looking at the present days, we're living in a borderless society. But we're talking about the border conflict between India, that always tend us to go back to the pre-independence or independence period, and look into the what are the issues are there. So if you're looking at India-China relation that way, so the first point for me would be the era of recognition. It's like from 1947 to 49 when India gained its independence, and simultaneously China got its independence in 1949. So that is the first period of understanding or creation of mutual understanding between India and China. So why it's called it era of recognition? Because India was the first country who recognized China as a sovereign entity in international politics. So then the second era, that after that particular recognition, there was era of cooperation. That's the second stage of Indo-China relation. That is when India and China agreed to sign Panchashila Agreement. So if you're looking at Panchashila Agreement, it's all about between the heat of Cold War, when both the countries agreed to talk about mutual peace, mutual sovereignty, and protection of peace. And that is something like when you talk about South-South or North-South debates, Pondicherry Agreement was one of the key driver for that, like now non-allied movement or your South bloc politics against your capitalist and communist. Then you come to the third point, that is the era of conflict. So era of conflict, it's I would like to say it's like 1960s, like 62 onwards, like when we India and China first planned into a particular conflict between each other, like 1962 war. It's like when like and if you're looking at the cooperation to conflict, it is like huge drastic change in terms of Chinese foreign policy towards India. Although there are a lot of stories and anecdotes to why they fight with each other, to why they fought with each other, but there are lot of things that make these relations strain in that. So apart from this 1962 conflict period, so there also another instance that make the apart from this particular war, there is a second instance which make the relation much more worse between India and China. It's Chinese interest towards to become a nuclear power. By 64, 65, China gets its nuclear arsenal, and that is something create another security challenge in Indian mindset. So then is the fourth stage is the era of stagnation. So like that is, and the era of stagnation between India-China relations started from 62 onwards to almost for 67 and 76. It's almost like over a decade of period. So when you're looking at 62 to 76, we hardly have any good contacts between India and China. But there are a period of revival after 1976. Why I'm saying it's a period of revival? Because during this time, if you're looking at this also period of detente and rise of new Cold War in world politics. And in looking at during this time, US also started recognizing China as a major power in international politics and also allowing China to enter into UN Security Council. And also during this time, if you look at Indian politics, India's foreign minister, then foreign minister A.B. Bajpayee, paid a visit to China, and followed by the former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi. So this is the period of revival. Then we had entered into the new era of contestation between India and China. The era of contestation, why I'm saying, because we're looking at 1998 to 99 or early 2000. During this particular time, China started investing in regional security architecture, that is Shanghai Organization Cooperation and other things. And look at India. India started building up its own nuclear arsenals. Right, because we already tried in 78 or 79, but it was failed. But by 1998 to 99, we already gained the access to nuclear and we became nuclear power. And that somehow changed the security dynamics between India and China. So that is something we have to look in. This is why I say it is the era of contestation between India and China. So, and the seventh stage between India and China, I would prefer to say it's maneuverability. So, who will control the geopolitics of South Asia or larger Asian continent? So here, I would like to bring into the idea of string of pearls, the way China tried to encircle India's interest in South Asia and Indian Ocean region. Then, then followed by the OBOR or the BRI project, like early 2013, 2014 onwards, China started projecting its flagship initiative. It's like One Belt, One Road initiative or Belt Road initiative, and that's where it poses a serious challenge to India because it's already merged your string of pearls, it's already merged your maritime Silk Road and your trade Silk Road, that is connecting land route from China, Mongolia to Europe through Russia, and the maritime Silk Road that also covered your state of Malacca to Indian Ocean to Europe. That's where it totally encircled India's ability. And to counter this, India come up with, or Indian strategic thinkers, they come up with the idea that it's called counter string of pearls. And in this particular strategy, the way India engaged with its neighbors, including Iran, Afghanistan, India's membership in Shanghai Organization Cooperation, or India's important European region, or India's interest in Quad and ASEAN region. So this is where the Indian strategic thinkers they started claiming that India is countering the string of pearls strategy of China. So, but looking at this particular area, so if you see, India hardly have any strong strategy or any, like in terms of economic strategy, in terms of security strategy, or in terms of military presence to counter the OBOR project or the BRI project of China. So this is where we face major challenge. Then I call it the current stage is the security dilemma. So although security dilemma is something emerged during Cold War politics, but I think it still prevails between India and China. And also looking at the security dilemma stage, I'd like to highlight what are the major aspects between this stage of security dilemma. First is energy, the way Central Asia emerging as a key epicenter of energy security. The way India's administration, or under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi or the current petroleum minister, the way they are engaging in Arab countries or Central Asian countries, it has a lot of opportunities and challenges for India and China relations. Second, nuclear. Why I'm saying nuclear, I'm not talking about nuclear creating war machines. I'm talking about nuclear energy and using nuclear energy for civilian purposes. The way India is tying up with different countries, the way India is planning for civil nuclear and that's and the second the third point I would like to hear is the cyber. So cyber, why I would like bring into cyber, because looking at the way China building up its cyber capabilities by enhancing by creating firewalls, the way India is gaining that like through the Atmanirbhar initiative or Digital India initiative, the way India is pushing for digital infrastructure and digital gain. And also here is a security dilemma is most of the investment that India's digital infrastructure is getting is from Chinese company. I think the eminent speaker will highlight how business and borders are challenging each other in the borderless world. So then I would like to then it's come to the border issues. The way we were looking at from 2016, 2015 onwards, the way we started facing new issues from China, like Doklam to present crisis, the recent crisis that we had in Ladakh. So for me, I would like to sum up with this, conclude with this introductory remark is that, so if you ask me how do you see India-China relation, I'd like to say that we are in a different stage altogether. So we started with the recognition, we started building up cooperations, but now we are more in a dilemma stage. So I will see that there is a lot of dilemma rather than there are a lot of opportunities. But I think here there is a need for both the governments to come up with a new strategy and to deal with the issues, because India as a democratic country, but looking at China, they are not a democratic country, because the way Jinping claimed himself as the new king, in the quote unquote, because that's my statement, new king of China. So with this, I'd like to conclude and open the floor for the chair, and I'd like to request chair to call up the next speaker. I'm open to take question at the end of this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, now the stage is for Professor Das. I think we would love to listen to him first, then we'll start our discussions.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, Jaydev. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Amo Prayas, for this opportunity. And I'm grateful that you have made me one of your presenters, and you have covered a lot of topics related to public policy and current COVID situation. Here, this is a topic which I have prepared very quickly on something which I have been commenting upon maybe for 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So this is a longer period of discussion. Thanks, Jaydev, for creating that background and providing that base that how India and China have actually evolved their relationship in so many phases. And those interlocking and interdependent phases have been very insightful, I think, for every one of us who have joined here. So what I'm going to do in next maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes, then we can keep another 15-20 minutes for Q&A, depending on the nature of the question. What I'm going to do is that I have not kept much text here, so some pictures are there. I'll be showing those pictures. So how this presentation is structured, the point number one is to understand that as India has been talking about with Pakistan, that terrorism and dialogue cannot go together. So in Chinese case, is this the case? Border clashes are normally normal worldwide, normally normal. So, is the PPT visible?
Yes, PPT is visible.
Okay, done. So, then yes, with the Pakistan case. So, with the Chinese case, is this possible? Why? I'm asking question number one. China has made investment in India in critical infrastructure management, in also our nuclear facilities management. So, it is easy to wish away 59 apps, which may not be of great financial consequence to China. TikTok was one. So, but it will definitely have given a message. But that's not enough. So, India in a position to deal with China strongly and give a firm message. China completely aware of Indian vulnerability at some places of the border. India is also completely aware of its advantage at some places of border in the around of 3,500 kilometers. So in those 3,500 kilometers borderline from eastern part of northeastern part of India to the northern part, close to the Kashmir and going through Ladakh and Nepal border, Nepal, Ladakh, Bhutan, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh. So entire that stretch. China is aware that there are places where China is at disadvantaged position, India is at advantage position. So both parties are aware. That is point number one. Second, when they're aware, so why should they engage in border classes? That is question number one. So, 1962 war that created a lot of mental scare in the political system of India and gave a Chinese more, you can say, advantageous position in connection with India and China. And India and China, as Jaydev clearly mentioned, India and China couldn't connect after 1962. There was not much connection after that. So, today's connection, the discussion is on the connection that from Doklam to Galwan, how India's relationship on the border with China is going to be defined and redefined in the future. We'll come back to business at the end. So border is the Competition agency one which actually arbitrates on the border issue unless and until two parties go together and they make mutual consent kind of presentation, think that we want this to be settled. So when two sovereign nations sharing borders, they actually through different negotiations they agree on the line of actual control. There is a difference between LAC and LOC. The LAC's line of actual control means where it stands, where we agree on that. But out of those 3,500 kilometer long stretch of the border, around 7 to 9 places are there where India and China don't agree that their claims, sometimes their claims overlap each other. China says, no, I'm from here. India says, no, you are not from here, you are from here. So those differences are there. So all those differences are actually in a civilized society, in a civilized world, in 21st century world, must be ironed out, must be sharpened. Can you mute others, all others? Yeah. Sharpened in such a way that you can actually claim to be civilized nations in the 21st century world, working towards global peace. China wants to be the largest, powerful, big superpower by 2050. If that is what China wants, will China be able to achieve that if it continues to do the difficulty around its border? Answer is no. So let's understand where the Chinese supremacy, idea of supremacy comes from. India, kind of Narendra Modi has articulated in a way that India wants to become a Vishwaguru. What does that mean? That is a soft power projection. And it doesn't necessarily mean showing supremacy over others through any means, either through financial means or technology means or military means. But what happens is that I have a quote from Deng Xiaoping, I will share that later on. So where Deng Xiaoping says, we do not want to become a superpower. In 1974 address to the United Nations, so Deng Xiaoping, who actually succeeded Mao Zedong and actually is considered as the father of Chinese modernization in the context of opening up the market to the global market. So Deng Xiaoping says that we don't want to become a superpower. Taking example of the United States, the way the United States was dealing with the world. So what China has eventually become, what Deng Xiaoping feared. उनका जो डर था वो आज रियलिटी बन रहा है. So the point is that's where China is going towards. So in the long stretch of the 3,500 kilometers stretch, the points that that there are disagreements, I am of the opinion, as both an analyst and a citizen of the country, why after the Galwan clash, where we lost 20 soldiers, martyrs, and they lost perhaps equal number or perhaps less or more, we don't know the exact number. But anyway, that was lost on the Chinese side also. So why that tension has not been taken care of at the summit level, which means Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi. So meeting at Wuhan, meeting in India, going to Gujarat, is very good. And sitting on the swing, discussing about India-China cultural relations, India-China Buddhism in the past, Wen Sang coming to Nalanda. So all those discussions are fantastic and good. We can celebrate about it. But when present context talks about a particular challenge, we're not able to handle it. I think Modi and Xi Jinping's personal relationship is not what we thought about. We thought it is a strong relationship, and both major powers, big powers, we talk about them. They're not superpowers yet, but both major powers, big powers, who are actually intending to make the 21st century, Asian century, have the capability to work together. But they're not working together. That doesn't show. Okay, so let's visit the border case first. So why borders should be as a priority, should have the Chinese government and Indian government could have dismissed this situation as something which is a minimal conflict at a particular point at a particular location, and it doesn't mean that India and China actually want that. So that rejection hasn't come from the Chinese authorities, and that rejection hasn't come from India. And they have to say India doesn't want fight. It has made it clear those many words. Prime Minister Modi had to go to Ladakh and make that presentation. Everyone. So why the Chinese authorities have stayed silent? So I'm just asking this question, why silent? Instead, they could have picked up the phone and said that, okay, India and China are great partners. They have a lot of stakes in the world. Their first stake is actually to challenge the Western hegemony, to democratize the international institutions, and make Asia the biggest power center. After Europe was the 19th century, and America was the 20th century, and 21st century should be Asia. So China and India share their mutual interest in developing BRICS and developing partnership in climate change. But some scholar talked about that India and China have come together and they have opposed the Paris climate agreement to pollute, to develop the right to pollute. For that, so protectionism at one level, protecting their own interest at another level, protecting the interest of India and China, both are co-partners in the United Nations. But China is opposing India many times. So how to understand this kind of complex and cobweb of events? So let's try to make sense of it. Let's go back to Chinese foreign policy, then we'll come back to India's foreign policy as well. So Chinese foreign policy, perhaps Chinese foreign imagination policy comes later on. So I define policy as a deliberately designed statement to achieve an objective, long-term or short-term. When you put it foreign, it means your engagement with the outside world. So in that sense, what is the long-term objective that China wants? When Mao Zedong took power, the Communist Party of China took power in 1949, China was established as a different country. And then what happened? Mao had these 5 objectives, they called the 5 fingers. Though in Galwan we talk about river fingers, 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 finger, 4, that those are not the fingers that Mao Zedong talked and Mao Zedong's Communist Party talked. It talked about 5 things. What are the 5 things that China will be complete when these 5 territories are included in China? What are the 5 territories? Ladakh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Nepal, Bhutan. So when Modi says, the Prime Minister Modi says that विस्तारवाद की जमाना नहीं रहा, अभी विकासवाद का जमाना है. So then the Chinese Consul General perhaps takes it to personal and दिल पे ले लेते हैं, बोलते हैं नहीं हमें expansionist अब नहीं कह सकते, we can't call us expansionist. So anyway, so what has China been doing? So perhaps I'm sounding more nationalist in this context, that I'm looking at China from an Indian perspective. Let's not look at from an Indian perspective. Let's look at from the Southeast Asian perspective, from the Philippines, Indonesian, from the Japanese perspective, look at from the Korean, South Korean perspective. So let's look at China from that perspective. So if you look at from their perspective also, you will find that China is actually is a regional hegemon, is an expansionist power, is a bully, and China continuously is hoodwinking about its global responsibility and perhaps a responsible trade partner. China has been selling these two ideas. China has been able to sell these two ideas. Idea number one, that I am a responsible global power, and second, and I'm a responsible trade partner. So if you trade, we actually trade according to the rule of the law. So these things have gone in China's favor. So if you look at Chinese, it's established that China, even though it actually says no, it is actually an expansionist power. Now, where is China now? 1989, Tiananmen Square happens during the time of April and June. Worldwide, the opinion goes against China. And at that point of time, what happened was that 1989 is actually at the end of the Cold War situation. The Cold War is about to end. At that situation, Russia was not there. Kind of Soviet Russia was disintegrating slowly. Afghan war was over, kind of. So Soviet Russia was withdrawing from there. So at that situation, China was actually isolated in the world. Tiananmen Square brought humongous amount of criticism on China's internal politics and handling the dissent, and how students were actually doing hunger strikes. So that Tiananmen Square, the movement was known because of the location of that place. So after 1989, since now, in these many years, not a single event you can say where China has faced the global brunt like COVID-19. So China is at a very difficult situation now, very, very difficult situation. Like America, France, Britain, even Russia, though not directly, they've all told that you have to disengage with India. You have to disengage with India. If you want a full-blown war, then you are actually going to do it alone. No one is going to support you. Rather, world is going to support India. So those many words have been told to Chinese authorities, whether they're diplomatic officials, whether they're strategic or whatever, war decide machinery which decides to fight war. Xi Jinping's team has been actually informed this thing, that Donald Trump, however maverick and however eccentric he is, but the American administration has made it clear that in India-China war happens, even if it is soft war, America is going to not only give moral support, but perhaps whatever support, logistic and supply support will also be given. So that is where China stands. So does it mean the Galwan Ghati, that whatever happened in Galwan Valley on 15th of June, so was that a local incident, or it was approved by the CPC or Xi Jinping? So people would like to believe that China is actually doing that to bully India, but China will actually get very little out of it. If it is actually instructed from the central the Communist Party that actually teach India a lesson, like this, like a lesson like that. So it is going to be actually, and so what I'm arguing, on all television channels we have been arguing since long that yes, it was actually Xi Jinping who is responsible for this. So there is a possibility of doubt, or we call it in cricket terms, umpiring terms, benefit of doubt to be given. So a benefit of doubt can be given to Chinese authorities and decision makers in such a way that they know the situation. COVID-19 has made them absolutely vulnerable global level. No one is going to trust China anymore. The level of trust has gone down, and pre-COVID-19 Chinese perception of China, the image of China around the world was actually going down. Pew Research, which is an American company who did the research around the world, and they found that the Chinese image is going down. So COVID-19, it has gone again down. So in this context, so was the border clash sponsored, directed, dictated, planned, cold-blooded, planned from Beijing? Right. Oh, okay. What happened there? Definitely hour after that. So is China going to continue to do the border classes? So the first question, was it from the government, or it was a local event? And another thing, there is a big problem Because I think Jawaharlal Nehru University was the first university which started a school of language and literature and culture studies. So to promote different languages. Not many universities actually teach Chinese language. We don't have enormous capacity in Chinese language. We don't understand them. And I don't believe that the Bihar regiment people who were deployed there, they're actually trained in Chinese language. So there are possibilities that the clash happened. So clash happened because of the miscommunication. That's a possibility. So no doubt. But I'm talking about another thing. Once it has happened, why the Chinese government has not taken responsibility? Saying that this is enough, we are disengaging and withdrawing from here, we do not want to engage with India. Because now let's come back to the other complexities involved in India-China relationship. So Doklam was definitely there. So India said we're actually protecting our partner, Bhutan. China said no, that land is actually ours, not Bhutan's. Bhutan says no, this land doesn't belong to you. So anyway, three parties could have gone to International Court of Justice, they didn't. So what they want to show to the civilized world, does that mean Bhutan is a small country? It can be taken over by India or China? India has not taken over. India has done one interesting thing. In the Bangladesh crisis, 1971, when the East Pakistan became Bangladesh, so many 90,000 or more soldiers surrendered. India could have actually kept East Pakistan as a protectorate or a colony. That was the situation. But India actually freed. No, it's about freeing that land. So that is a tradition. So I might sound as a nationalist or Hindutva politician, but the point is, when Ram actually was coming back from Sri Lanka after Ravana was killed, Vibhishan actually gifted Sri Lanka to Ram, saying that Sri Ram, no one better than you can rule Sri Lanka in the world. Please take it over. It's your land. I'm giving you. It's like Raja Hari Singh signing with Jawaharlal Nehru, saying that, okay, please take this land, help my people. Not under that compulsion. Vibhishan had no compulsion then. Ravana was gone. But Ram said, no, that's not my land. I have not created that. So that is where in Valmiki Ramayana, it comes like मातृभूमि के ऊपर जो श्लोक है मैं भूल गया हूँ. So जननी जन्मभूमि से स्वर्गादपि गरीयसे. So he comes back to Ayodhya. Also Vibhishan is keen that from Ayodhya also rule. That what the Britishers used to do in 19th and 20th centuries. So perhaps the first colony that Ram should develop, staying in Ayodhya and looting Sri Lanka for Ayodhya's management. Ram didn't do that. So anyway, so India has fairly a fair, you can say, benefit of doubt can be given to India, that India, despite the bigger size, has been less authoritarian. It has been questioned about its intervention in Nepal, its intervention in Sri Lanka, the Indian peacekeeping, the peacekeeping force that went there, and IPKF. So that went there. That was considered as, but that was on the invitation of Sri Lankan government. It cannot be called an intervention. So India has not been an America. The way America has been behaving in 20th century, India has not become in China. In that context, in this context, how India would engage with China is this, right? So this is the situation. I think Indian Prime Minister and Indian government have to take these issues to a international level and create a national consensus at a height level. These are the very big issues pending for decades, and that needs to be solved. The issue with China. That is issue with Pakistan, with occupied Kashmir. That issue definitely is a political issue at one level, and another is a communal or religious issue, and that is another issue of treaty of accession. So all that legality is also involved. So with Pakistan, that remains as difficult with the border, but with China at least, India can actually find it out with amicably, because and another liberal philosophy which says, the maxim says, nations which trade don't go to war, because they invest in so much in each other's well-being, each other's development. So economics plays an important role in strategy in a war, and also in the theory of expansionism. So is India-China business so strong that can stop them fighting a war? Right. So answer is both yes and no. So let's come back to deal with the border situation and go a little beyond to business. So 3,500 kilometers, 9 to 10 places. In Odia, we say matantara ho, manantara na ho. So you should have difference of opinion, but you should not actually have differences of mind. You don't disagree with each other in such a way to go to level of violence. So on those stretches from there, so LSC should become LOC. Line of actual control should become line of control. And to ensure that both governments have to work on the summit level. And if Narendra Modi government is very, very sincere about celebrating 75th year of India's independence in 2022, and there have been 75 the agenda like Swachh Bharat is one, and perhaps COVID has challenged all that. So all those developments that we want to do, perhaps electricity to every house, all people educated. So you can have this list. You should have also this list that national boundary earmarked. So that has to be a policy statement. That has to be a strategic objective, or else you are not paying attention. You are also doing lip service. So this is a very difficult negotiation. But what is easy when you are managing a nation of 130 crore people and China maybe 150 crore people? So 280 crore people situation is here involved, close to 300 crore, close to 40% of the entire population of the world. Nothing should become easy. Everything will be difficult. So it's difficult thing. So in Sanskrit it is said, Srayansi Bahuvignani. If you want to do bigger things in your life, what will happen is that major obstacles will start coming to your life as well. So if the government of India and government of China are not sitting together and saying that today we are declaring that summit level border dispute resolution committee and giving a 2-year deadline saying that by 2022, August 15, India and China are committed to solve these issues. Then what are you feeling? What are you giving? What link you are giving to the world is that you are not interested in global peace. You are actually interested in what? You are expanding your sovereignty, taking on other people's sovereignty, and at the same time, what happens is that you are interested to bully each other. And why India should be at the receiving end? So this is one takeaway from the border issue is that government of India, governments of China needs to sit together and tell to the world. And it will be very good for China. Because China is actually battling a battle of perception around the world. And many people, if you look at India, not more than 20% people actually get to China pre-COVID. Around 27% of the people are in favor of China. In Japan, it was 14%. Right? And it has gone down again. So in a global, this is the strategy. If I am an advisor to Chinese government, I would immediately say that institute a collaborative, bilateral, high level border dispute, not management, but it's not border management, border dispute resolution the team. That is how you have to deal with the situation. Or else it is not done. Now, what are the challenges here? Challenge number one, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and One Belt, One Road initiative. Challenge number one, because that goes to the same border that India actually eyeing Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Sometimes in most of the media discussions in recent months, there has been a talk that India should plan actually to take over Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So that fear has been accentuated or accelerated because when the meteorological department started giving weather reports about Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and a lot of investment has been done, and Pakistan has become actually client state of China to an extent, like one client state of China. Kind of Imran Khan is anyway puppet of ISI and military, and ISI and military have become puppet of China. So in that context, China has a country to itself. China has a country to itself to do whatever it wants to. And when America, in its height of superpower, because now after Iraq war, Afghanistan war, Iraq war, it has lost its way. It has, and what Trump is saying is that withdraw from the global politics. But at the height of American intervention during the Cold War period, America was actually interested in developing institutions, developing capacity, skill development, but definitely interested then so that it become America friendly. So China as a superpower or would-be superpower is investing in infrastructures where China can actually get immediate benefit out of it. So it's not this kind of soft power engagement for years together that democracy, human rights, English language, culture, sophistication, engagement, citizenship, civil society, civic debates, not like that. So you can understand what China wants. China is investing in border port. So those are the differences. So what are the challenges before border dispute resolution? One is the Pakistan is the challenge. Because Pakistan is very happy when India and China are fighting, because Pakistan is aware that the Indian army or Indian defense forces are weaker in comparison to China, and China then at least we have created another enemy to fight India. So we're not just fighting on the Kashmir border. So they're very, very happy at that level that they want China to dominate India, and not just militarily and other places as well. So one challenge is border dispute resolution will not happen unless POK is actually disentangled from China-India relationship. Pakistan occupied Kashmir has to be disentangled. So that is one disentanglement that has to happen. And China actually, there is another two challenges. So another two realizations that China had in last few months. What is the challenge? The challenge number one. What happened is this: when China took India to the World Forum, for example, United Nations Security Council, to actually condemn India's action in Kashmir, the revocation of 317/35A and demarcation of the former Jammu and Kashmir state into two union territories under the central government, those decisions and creating a clampdown on internet and questioning those human rights violations.
Sorry for the interruption, right? Yeah. Mr. Gullu Maharana, please mute your mic. You are creating disturbance.
So, actually, China wanted to bring a condemnation official condemnation to be issued from United Nations Security Council, and that didn't happen because the United States, France, and United Kingdom, they didn't support. Russia didn't support either. China has, you have also the skeletons in a cupboard. So what are the skeletons? China has been actually Xinjiang, the province. There have been, I think, more than 1 million people have been in detention camp. So China is actually trying to holier than thou. They call it Doctor Heal Thyself. So China has been asked this question as well. So China, this was a very bad, big realization by China that India's diplomatic power has increased so much that it has been, China being a veto holding power in United Nations Security Council has been unable to actually create a condemnation proposal to condemn India's action. The United Nations Security Council members actually said it's an internal matter of Indian territory, and it is under the jurisdiction of India's authority that under the Constitution of India they can actually do this. So when India actually convinced them that this is what actually is the internal matter of India. So in this context, China has a very, very bad realization that India's diplomatic power is also growing. India is not, this is called checkbook diplomacy. India is not just giving money to everywhere and investing in Africa, investing in America, Latin America. No, India is not doing that. India is still getting support. So this is a very bad waking up call. They call it in English language, smell the coffee. So get down from the ivory tower and smell the coffee. So China is smelling the coffee of India's diplomatic might. It might, but see, it is not only Narendra Modi who is responsible for India's rising profile. All prime ministers, all governments have actually put down things like that. Modi has accentuated that, taken that to the next level, definitely. So that was a very bad realization for China that India is actually diplomatically equal, not less, at times more capable or more popular. And China was also surprised when International Yoga Day was actually more than 177 countries. China and Pakistan were very, very surprised, actually supported as United Nations Day. Very, very surprised. So, China has been opposing Pakistan's terrorists who are even designated terrorists. Sometimes India has been talking about their terrorists. So China has been opposing to be branded them as international terrorists. So all these things, India has, and India could doclam, India could actually, without firing a gunshot, India could stay 73 days engaged eyeball to eyeball. And the Dr. Plato was actually a revelation for Chinese. 1962 onwards, in the Chinese military discourse, it is very, very clearly written and practiced that Indians are no match to Chinese. One Chinese soldier is equivalent to 10 Indian soldiers. So we can actually, if we want, we can take over. But another thing also we have to understand, if China was so powerful after 1962, despite having all the challenges, because China had a very difficult relationship with India because of Dalai Lama issue. because Dalai Lama was given political asylum and supported by Jawaharlal Nehru and further governments as well. No one has said, okay, Dalai Lama, you go back and we're deporting you. Let's support where we're doing support to the Tibetan refugee government, government in exile. That has not happened. So the politics, that broader politics, as Jaydev gave the broader flavor of the phases. So broader politics has its implication on border. So border has to be resolved. There is no second doubt about it. But what are the challenges and what are the opportunities? Challenges are Pakistan occupied Kashmir. That is one challenge. That if that is taken by India, China is not. It is not going to be easy for China to negotiate very easily. And that is the reason perhaps India didn't want. I don't know how many Chinese were offended, but quite a few number of them that India didn't join OBOR. The invitation was there. One Belt, One Road initiative, India didn't join because India said my interests are not taken care of. Okay? So if Pakistan occupied Kashmir is actually part of India's in next few years. China, it is not going to be easy for China to negotiate China-Pakistan economic corridor. That will be China-India and Pakistan economic corridor. So this is not going to be, and they have got it in the plateau. Pakistan being in the sense being in the Gulf of War, internal war, economic slowdown. So it is actually looking up to China to support them in its economic revival. So in this context, Pakistan occupied Kashmir is a big problem in the border solution, one problem. Second, that out the 5 fingers that Mao talked about, then the psychological thing, that Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, Ladakh, and Arunachal Pradesh are part of China. Unless and until you look at this discourse as something which is impractical at the moment, you can say that, okay, at a certain point of time it was there. It was practiced, but it is absolutely irrelevant today and unacceptable today in the civilized society of 21st century. And as a responsible global power, this ambition of China is not going to be healthy and not accepted. So if it is not, this denouncement is not happening, and Pakistan or the occupied Kashmir remains as a thorn issue, then border disputes are going to continue. But still, there is a possibility that India can engage because why? What is the opportunity? In management, we teach that negotiate from the point of strength. What strength India has shown? One is the diplomatic strength in 370. There are issues in Kashmir. I don't disagree on that. I'm a student of public policy. I'm also talking about there are issues of freedom, there are issues of federal mobility, there are issues of development, there are issues of access, there are definitely issues. But India has taken a decision in the national interest of the country, and India has to be answerable to that as well. No other country has to poke their nose in Kashmir. So the 370 successful diplomatic maneuvering around the world and thwarting and stopping China on its track to bring condemnation to India. So that was a big surprise to China. Second was Doklam was a big surprise to China. And third, China is not a battle-hardened army. Pakistan, America, India, they have a battle-hardened army. Means they have fought battles. Chinese have fought rarely big battles. There have been border skirmishes, and they're actually doing more technology. One person said to someone when India and China were compared, they said India is actually a global emerging superpower because of the language, because of English, because of agility, because of diversity, because of democracy and all that, and because of technology as well. So some Chinese actually responded saying that we are learning artificial intelligence faster than Indians learning English. So anyway, this is what the border issue stands at. Let's come back to business. India's business with China is not what it should be. So next page I want to go, or I can go to next page. Okay, here. I'm not able to go to the next page in the PPT. Is there anyone who can help me? How is it done?
Minimize the screen, then
you can go to slideshow first. Go to slideshow.
Okay. Title slideshow. This is
on the
actually
top left. Yeah, just go right. Slideshow.
Right,
Not to the far right. I'm saying is somewhere after slides. You have slideshow, right? There you can see towards the left.
In the menu bar, it's also there slide, so you can click on that. File, edit, view, slide, and slide. So
Edit view. Okay.
edit, view, insert, format, slide, then slide. So then you can slide. So
View enhanced slide. So yes. Done. Is the second slide coming?
Is it okay? If it is in slideshow,
No.
just press the down arrow, right? Going
Yeah.
down arrow, and it will go to the next one.
Not going. Somehow it's not going. Okay, I wanted to show this actually. There are some pictures here. I don't know why it is not showing. And right, so can I send it to someone who can show it from there? Okay, it's not coming.
let's send you an email ID. You can send there. So can you share the screen from here?
Have you sent me on WhatsApp? Or-
Yes.
Okay, I'm sending that to you. So let me continue as the technical thing is being taken care of. So business, coming back to the topic of business, in the business sense, India has taken some symbolic and important gesture, that is actually um, uh, blocking the apps, but that's not enough. India cannot afford to do it very, very quickly. It will take time. So this entanglement for entire Chinese investment is not possible. It will only happen after some time. I have shared with you, just check if it has reached.
I think you can continue. By the time you put this, then I will share my screen and you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay. Right. Let me forward this actually. Give me a second.
The email ID is amoproyas.event@gmail.com.
Yes. Just check it as whether it has gone. I've sent again. I think yes, it shows it has gone. So let me. So can I disconnect and present it?
I haven't received yeah.
Okay. Have you received it?
No.
Okay. Okay. So let me continue on that. So again, I'll take time, another 5-7 minutes, so we should wind up the business side. So point number one, few pointers. Point number one, the border issue has to be solved. It has its challenges, but it has its opportunities as well. India has its strength to negotiate, and India has to also show to the world that people have been looking up to China and telling that China is the natural leader from Asia or from the world. So it is actually not the case. There can be multiple leaders in a multipolar world order, and India also has a rightful place in the global politics. So that is one thing. India has to punch above its weight, borrowing the language from the boxing um, um, literature. So, what else lies ahead in the business sense? A lot of people, Indians, have invested in China, and several of Chinese have invested in Indian projects. The Chinese investment had been in the areas of mostly in technology and in also startup edutech companies and also in mobile. So if all the investment goes in one day, so that will be huge uproar on the or impact, if not uproar, impact
You can
on
stop
our
sharing your screen, then I'll share my screen.
okay. So how do I stop presenting? Okay, I've stopped presenting. So then there is a lot of possibility that there will be the unemployment rate will go higher. So China before COVID had 4% unemployability. India had close to 20%, and that's gone to maybe 35% of unemployability. So huge unemployability possible. Right. So you can go to the next. Let's show next slide. This was Galwan Valley, and next. Can you do it bigger? Yeah. Next one. This is interesting. This is a rock of peace between India and China, where India and China have decided that they actually have to, they believe in peace and they walk towards peace as well. It's a very interesting rock there. Next. This is the border dispute at 23 disputed and sensitive areas along the close to 3,500 kilometer long lines. Out of this 23, 13 are considered less sensitive and 10 are considered highly sensitive. So this is from the Bhutan side to up to the Ladakh side. So this is the picture of that. And interestingly, China was using Nepal so that Nepal can claim some part of Uttarakhand, saying that India actually has taken Nepal's land. So that is huge diplomacy happening there. Some other time, India, Nepal, and China. Next. So if you compare India, China, this is interesting. And China has been on 9.5% growth in last 2 decades. India is on 6%, which is average growth speed. And India's specialization in India is a soft power, superpower, design, services, precision industry. But China is considered the manufacturing hub of the world. Next. Ease of doing business. This is where I wanted to come. Ease of doing business. China is actually 31. India is 63. So need to go very, very close. You can see the second point here. India is 63 in 2019, last year. Next. What India could lose with China if a situation like war happens, or a situation like complete economic shutdown happens. So the total value of trade is $71 billion, which is actually 2017-18 figure. And the Indian trade is actually 11.75 billion. And Chinese is 59 billion. You can see the difference here. So trade is actually in favor of China. Next. Interestingly, China actually boycotts products of other people, Norway, Japan, South Korea, USA. These have been the countries. China actually boycotting their products once in a while to actually have economic and diplomatic advantage and push them into advantage of decision making to China. So boycott China is perhaps very interesting call in India. Not many countries have actually done that to China. So slowly Southeast Asian countries are actually interested to see how India behaves. And the United States has also shown some interest that it can also ban some of those super apps that China actually has sent. So not super apps, they call it spy apps also. Next. So it's a very, very interesting business indicator here. Import that we're doing from China is in billions. Export that we are doing to China, we are sending, that China imports from us, is in millions. So what are the items? Electrical items, machinery parts, organic chemicals, plastic, ships and boats. These are billions that China is actually sending that to us. What we are sending to India? Like ores, like iron ore, slag, ash, cotton, organic chemicals. Like that we're sending, but the figure is very, very minimal in comparison to China. Next. So if I say, are we dependent on China on many of these fronts? Answer is yes. If I say this, will I become an anti-national? Answer is no. So the point is, we should understand the fact and also behave properly. Boycott China is a fantastic call, and China should also understand and it should also behave properly in the global order. It cannot bully its neighbors the way it wants. And if there are misperceptions or miscommunication on the border, it actually, as a civilized country, to sit down together rather than push soldiers from the Galwan Valley to the Galwan River and kill people. See, what is the war? War is a declared conflict. So what happened on 15th June is an undeclared conflict. And when you don't declare, what happens? That you are 1962 India was caught napping and considered as a cheating धोखा हो गया. So June 15 के बाद China को कौन विश्वास करेगा? The trust level has gone down. So this is a study by the Pew Research Center, PEW. This was actually before COVID-19. International opinions of China divided. So if you look at how many people are unfavorable in against China, unfavorable, 67% in Canada. So many people unfavored, 60% in the United States. A very high number. And if you look at how much unfavorable, if you look at that, what is India? Where is India? India is 46% unfavorable and 23% favorable. I think remaining can't say might have been there, according to the statistics they have taken. So Japan, 85% unfavorable, 14% favorable. Okay, Japan. Some people thinking China is okay, no problem. So this is the study that Pew Research Center done, and this is a very respected research outcome that Pew does periodically. This people call it an American bias, but it's kind of one fact I figure it's ready here. And already people have talked about the Chinese authorities, and Chinese think tanks have also alerted and warned that to Xi Jinping, that Mr. Xi Jinping, 1989 Tiananmen Square, the post Tiananmen Square backlash against China was huge. And we are actually going to see more backlash now because of COVID-19, because of situation in Hong Kong, because of situation in Taiwan, because of situation in South China Sea, because of the way you have treated Indians. So these are going to work actually against China. So this is the right time to negotiate with China. India should be actually very, very, we call it aggressive. Aggressive on this, not aggressive necessarily on violence. Aggressively pursuing it, saying that this is the time we want this to be done. Next, is there any other slide? The last one. Oh, this was the Deng Xiaoping actually speech. China is not a superpower, nor will she ever seek to be one. Very interesting speech. If one day China could change her color and turn into a superpower, if she too should play the tyrant in the world and everywhere subject others to her bullying, aggression and exploitation, the people of the world should identify her as a social imperialist, expose it, oppose it, work together with the Chinese people to overthrow it. This is Deng Xiaoping in 1974 speech. And he was talking about, actually in contrast to the American capitalist imperialist model, saying that if China does the same thing, China will also be considered as a social imperialist. So I stop it here. It's already 6 minutes past 3. So I was about to write this because I can. China is facing also economic distancing. That's a new term. Social distancing, then economic distancing. Okay, we can go back to the first page. So my talk is over. Let me just talk about 2 minutes in summarizing this. Border issues, resolution is important, not impossible, but difficulties are there. Difficulty number 1, Pak-occupied Kashmir. And difficulty number 2, the Chinese self-esteem that is actually negotiated with India. So China is actually at the lowest level of its confidence in its rising story. Because PRC, they call it the peaceful rise of China. So in this presentation, I was looking at more conceptually. I didn't go to the details of the data and facts. So more of like a story. So border is that. Business with India is not entirely possible to de-link and divorce entire India-China thing. It will take its time. So possibly, it will. Now China has got a jolt out of it, but it is not a big jolt. It is not a big economic jolt if India stops buying from China. But if others follow, if India becomes a leader in boycott China movement, then China has a difficult time to face. So China is very much aware about it. So this is the time, diplomatically speaking, strategically speaking, intelligence-wise speaking, foreign policy decision-making-wise speaking, this is the time to hard bargain with China on the international front. Last point, this actually Galwan withdrawal happened. My senior, who is a JNIT also, Dr. Binod Misra, predicted that before the BRICS summit of July 21, July 23, they will definitely disengage because Vladimir Putin doesn't want the West to criticize that the BRICS actually failed the model hai, ye kaam nahi karne wala, and Russians and Chinese, they don't talk to each other. They can't find solutions among problems among themselves. What solution they will find of the global problems? So they're about to face this criticism. Putin silently has intervened between Xi Jinping and Modi, or between Chinese government and Indian government, and impressed upon them to disengage. So this has happened now. So I stop it here and open for questions, discussions, feedback, all that. Thank you. I should.
Yes, brother. So now we have received 2 questions. I think Joydev, if you are there, so please take the forum forward. I think Deepak has asked 2 questions. And after these questions, I will have a small feedback I would like to express.
Okay, so the question is for both the speakers, how you are visualizing the future relationship between India and China, and what should be India's strategic move to Chinese dominance. And the second, during this pandemic, when all developed countries are busy in managing COVID, China is trying to make itself economically developed by increasing manufacturing investments and exports. Do you think that China is going to be next world superpower? So I'd like to request Professor Das to speak first, then I'll take the second.
Okay. I think, am I audible? Yes. So I think the answer is there in the big, I think long for 1 hour I have been speaking. So let's summarize that. India has to take on China, no choice. I talk about, someone has talked, I am actually borrowing, or else it will be plagiarism. Someone has talked about a few C's. What are the C's? India and China will cooperate on issues, will collaborate on common interests, and will compete both at the industrial level and for image, public image also. They will compete, they will cooperate, collaborate, compete, and they will also be ready for conflict. So people have been talking about these 4 C's are possible with China, and you cannot wish away. Atalbihari Vajpayee used to say, we can't choose our neighbors. तो आप कल उठ के नहीं जा सकते कि आज मैं चाइना के घर में हूँ, कल मुझे एक ऐसे बॉर्डर पे जाना है जहाँ पे कुछ वॉर नहीं हो रहा है. I have to go to Australia. तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. This is the reality. I have to accept the reality. India has to accept the reality and engage, accept the situation as they are, and then improvise upon it. So this is the learning we learn from Art of Living, saying that you have to learn and accept the situation as they are, and then engage. And India has a lot of strength now. Thanks to its democratic culture, thanks to the constitution. It has challenges, definitely. No one is telling that it doesn't have challenges on poverty, human rights violation, sometimes minority, you can say, suppression and oppression of minorities, untouchability and exclusion in society, and gender violence, all that is there. Many societies are suffering from that. So while internally India becoming a good governance society, making an inclusive democracy, it's a work in progress. It has to keep its border secure. And within that border making secure, negotiating with China is priority number 1. If you can negotiate with China, all other borders will be secure. I think Sri Lanka, we do not have much difficulty. Bangladesh, we had a little bit of difficulty and disagreement for many, many years. I think this government, when it came the first term, it has actually done some interesting work. So with Nepal, we had a little bit of difficulty, but that's doable. With Pakistan, the difficulty is going to remain for a long time because of the two-nation theory, communal Hindu, Muslim. Unless we get out of that binary, India-Pakistan engagement is looking difficult to prosper. Last point is this: India, China are natural partners in a global order, which is dominated by the Europe and America. This is one. Second, for the global peace, These countries cannot just make high claims about globally responsible players. They have to show and exhibit it when it comes to them. And if they fight a war amongst themselves, China is going to perhaps have an edge over India for some time, but China is going to equally are going to suffer. So this is what my answer is.
Okay, so for the first question for Deepak Bhai, that what should be India's strategic move? I think instead of strategic move, I would like to say that India should move diplomatically rather than strategically, because where diplomatic or diplomats fail, the war begins. So I think India should act diplomatically, and also India, in terms of strategically, India already entered various parts.
I personally, to me, I understand the word. See, when you come back to the meaning of words, etymology of that word or meaning of the word, strategy is a bigger word. And when you come at diplomatic method, diplomacy is part of strategy. India cannot have a separate strategy for diplomacy, separate strategy for military, separate strategy for culture, separate strategy. So it's a big strategy. The strategy is bigger. It's a long-term vision. And diplomacy engagement is one of those pillars of strategy. So that's how I think I see the situation.
I have just a question, Jadav, if I could ask.
Yeah, I have to answer the second one. So,
yeah.
the idea of superpower. But looking at the idea of superpower, it's something very peculiar, and it's well driven by American thinkers, right? Where they talk about someone has the ability and the capability to control the global security, global politics, global economics, and military. Right, but looking at China, they say that China is not a benign power, like most of the realists that come from the US. So, and that's why they start criticizing. So, looking at China became world superpower. It's very challenging these days because we are no longer living in a world what is not connected to each other. We are living in a complexly interdependent and interconnected world order where it can't be superpower, but I can borrow Amitabh Acharya's quote, like we're living in a multiplex world order. So we're living in a different market where all the powers have their says. So India has to engage with China in both in strategic and diplomatically by keeping its national interests at the top. I think that's the one way. And China going to the next superpower, I think the situation is very dicey because US still is the dominating power in international politics. So we have to wait US to leave that particular place. Then there will be a power vacuum. Once there is a power vacuum, then there will be new power bandwagoning between powers. Then there would be the superpower or power not. Yes.
So one point. Actually, who is a superpower? The theorists of power have found out someone who has a hard power and soft power in such an extent level where they can actually influence others. One is of imposing themselves. One is making others subservient to you. But that's a different way of imperialism. Not that. The hard power is actually economics, means economy and the growth, and is technology and the military power. The three major components of hard power. What are the major components of soft power? It is a culture, language, art, whatever is actually the human beings do in their everyday life, other than protecting the nation. So that is soft power. So soft power is also business. Also is a critical link between the soft power and hard power because it actually helps economics to grow and businesses also engage with the world in merger and acquisition, in joint ventures, in partnerships, all that. And so business is also the connecting link. Media is the connecting link. Media is also part of soft power. So that is why CNN, BBC, Voice of America, Harvard University, other Ivy League universities, academics in those universities, those who are actually giving concept. So Samuel P. Huntington talks about class of civilization, the entire world starts talking about it. But that's a very myopic view of looking at the classes and civilizations. I think Jairam has asked an important question, where he says borders are not places where only conflict or trade happen. Borders are places where two civilizations meet. Each civilizational value have any role? As you explained, giving example of Ramayana and Bangladesh war, China seems guided by idea again, whereas India is being guided by idea of growth. So yes, idea of civilization and idea of growth. not necessarily military exclusive, but idea of growth I was talking about. China has a middle kingdom complex. We're talking about for centuries together, China has thought that entire world is, if this is the entire world, China is at the center. And Chinese civilization is in the middle kingdom. And everyone else is a barbarian. Everyone else is a barbarian, uncivilized. Right? So China has the responsibility to, that's a classical colonial interpretation, like Britishers actually came to India and said that we're civilized, you are not. So anyway, so China has a middle kingdom complex. So India, even if it is in Vishwaguru, it has to be very careful how it engages it with the hard power, with the Sri Lanka, with the Maldives, with the Bhutan, with Nepal, with the Bangladesh, with Afghanistan. Pakistan is a different matter. But anyway, so India has to be the benign big brother. But is it possible to be benign when you are such a powerful country, big country? So those questions are there, not necessarily immediate answers are available, but India has to be guided by its civilization values of peace and non-violence and non-interference, like the Panchashil that we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jairam's voice questions, I'd like to take it. Right, the civilization values and the wars or the conflict. I think we can draw the examples from the Europeans, the way the history of wars they fought like for centuries, the way they started reconciling with each other and creating European Union. So the South Asian countries, although we mostly exclude China from described as the South Asian nations, but we can think of like China or like all the South Asian countries, including China, can work up and create a civilization engagement. Because we never had a fight like France and Germany, right? So we
and Britain. And France and Britain, and Spain and Britain.
We can think of like something that way. Okay, because
yes. So first one is a question and second one is just a feedback from my side. So the first one, if I think, let me first say it's a very excellent presentation by both Joydev and Professor Kamala sir. So really very insightful. My first point is, India's foreign policy have often been traced to Ashoka's conversion to peace and non-violence and influence of Gandhi also. And India has always been committed to the struggle against, say, imperialism, colonialism. And another most important element is non-alignment. So whenever, when Joydev also cleared the air, like saying during the Cold War period, so in this trade war period between China and USA, do you think that this non-alignment part of India's diplomatic forum has costs India in terms of the conflict with China? So it's a very, I think, and the second part, my feedback will be, see, always favorable trade doesn't matter, because what happens whenever you say that China, why trade happens? So we have to go back to that origin. Why trade happens? Trade happens for also mutual benefit, for mutual benefit. And secondly, so even China, we have a trade deficit with China, say some $1 billion, $70 billion, but China has equal fear. We are also the consumer of their product or market. So we are a big economy, big market for them. So even if we have a disfavorable trade, then China has equal fear. So I think that equalizes our relationship, being a consumer and being a producer. So even if we because there is no space in the world manufacturing scenario that India can take China's place. India can also take its strategic place being a consumer also. So how do you visualize it? Right. So two things that I wanted to speak. Any of you could actually, give insights on it. Thank you.
So Jaidev, you respond first.
Okay. So talking about the trade history, like the trade begins because if you're looking at the international trade, earlier we are relying on bullions and mercantile views of international trade. Slowly we emerged into different parts. Right. I think that's the history of international trade. But looking at the consumer and business part, I think both the producer and the consumer, they are the important aspects in terms of market, in terms of their engagement in the market. Right. So India and China, they both have to understand that and that we are living in a different platform. Right, the platform is ever changing, it's more dynamic than any other centuries. So they are missing this particular scenario, then how is they going to and try to change the narrative between India and China? And what is the second question? I didn't.
Non-alignment.
Okay, so the Cold War and non-alignment. So this is the current state.
Jaydev, just a minute. Our fundamentals on diplomacy has been non-violence, matlab Gandhian views, and as well as I have said, ki peace, even commitment to the struggle against imperialism and colonialism. All the best. So then non-alignment is an important aspect. So is it costing us?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think the Cold War, now we live in a new Cold War period. The new kind of conflict is emerging between different powers. But non-alignment, I think year 2010 or 14, there are a few thinkers from CPR, Center for Policy Research. They come up with a non-alignment 2.0, where they talk about that India need to change their non-alignment strategy or the pre-Cold War or the Cold War period strategy in the LPG, like liberalization, privatization, and globalization era. And now I think we are more focusing about engagement and technological advancement. I think the non-alignment strategy, it's still there, but we are moving beyond the non-alignment. If we are remaining in the non-alignment, I think that will have more setback for India's economy and India's growth on larger scale. So we need to move beyond non-alignment. I think the present government, they are doing it. So we know we are non-allied, but in certain extent, but we are also protecting our interests. And non-allied means that doesn't imply that you have to stay within your home and do your things. It means you have to keep your national interests on the top and engage strategically or diplomatically. Over to you, Professor Das.
I think very apt answers on that. And whether non-alignment has cost us to become what India has become, answer is no. Because non-alignment, it is always retrospective. You can think, okay, ऐसा करते तो बढ़िया होता. उस टाइम पे non-alignment is considered as a national interest because one was a selfish interest of getting best of the both world. For example, United States से हम कुछ ले सकते हैं, रशिया से कुछ ले सकते हैं, लेकिन हम वैसे भी aligned हुए थे socialistic principle से क्योंकि हमारी जो struggle था वो imperialistic forces के against था. So that is why we actually became aligned with Russian or Soviet Russia's ideological positioning. But Soviet Russia was equally imperialistic. So the point is whether a philosophical is a philosophical idea as a socialism, when it becomes a socialist state, does it follow that into practice, into completely? The answer is no. So the China is socialist at one level and authoritarian at another level and politically open at another level and another level closed. So you can't find complete socialist and complete capitalist states. So anyway, they customize it. They call it socialism according to Chinese requirements. So did non-alignment harm India's chance? In retrospect, you can say that. But if you look at Jawaharlal Nehru's decision of being non-aligned, and many rumors are being fueled whether India was about to get a United Nations Security Council seat. So and it gave it actually in platter to China. So not commenting on that. The point is, irrespective of the going beyond the rumors, India was non-aligned. It was its national interest at that point of time. Thought about the strategic minds at that point of time, because they wanted to the rest of the world as a new country, didn't want to align and become subservient to another colony. That's big another colony. So they're very independent minded. If you read Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, B.R. Ambedkar, these are some of the key people who actually had big influence on India's post-independence India. So they're very independent minded, and they didn't want to be a colony of America. So Russia was more emancipatory at that point of time, because it looked like more emancipatory. But America was representing the Atlantic Association of Great Britain and France and others. So these countries of Europe have been colonial masters in the past. So India had a choice to make, and it made a choice. I think non-alignment has cost us something in retrospect, but we can't fault that to Jawaharlal Nehru and team.
Yes. So there are two questions in the box by lecture there. So you take one, I'll take the second one. The first one, little different.
Bhartiya Thar asked, for decades, India has been able to call on must support, but analysts are now questioning the wisdom of this relationship. I mean,
Not that one. It's a that many borders issues are present, including Pak, Nepal, China, Bangladesh. How do you see the future relationship and with these countries? That's the question. First question by question.
Second question, once again, if such disturbances from majority neighbors, then what should be our strategy to strengthen relations? And if it continues, then what will be the consequences? Okay. So point number one, there is no international border arbitration agency. Point number one. So what does it mean? The sovereign nations who share borders, they can actually, in a civilized way, can create you can say international, both bilateral border negotiation or border dispute resolution committees at the high level and negotiate what is there, what is not there, what is there, like that. So it has to happen. That is one. That is point number two. Point number three, yes, border issues will remain there, and people like or a ruler like in Nepal can actually come under Chinese influence and can also actually question India. So that's a possibility. So India has also to play diplomacy and counter that in the similar way. So India has started playing its own politics as well. So India is not sitting silent. How will India respond to that? Point number one, that it has to respond with civilized method of engagement. Point number one, that we respect each other's sovereignty and how borders are. अच्छा, कोई अगर इसमें से लॉयर होगा उसको पता होगा कि हम जब जमीन की केसेस लड़ते हैं कि ये जमीन आपका है मेरा है, तो क्या देखते हैं हम? पुराने देखते हैं मैप कि इतने साल इंडिपेंडेंट से पहले कहाँ था, इंडिपेंडेंट के बाद कहाँ आया. So we look at the history and sequence, available maps, we look at that, and if those cases maps are not available, then we actually use our best rational judgment to come to a conclusion. When that is not possible, we can invite a common arbitrator. So three other methods होते हैं. पहला, civilized way of accepting what is what is not, and second, also accepting each other's wisdom and rationalize it and accept it when real documents are not available in the past. Then third is actually on mutual consent, invite some third person who is neutral, maybe a Sweden, maybe a Finland, maybe a Denmark, maybe someone from the Scandinavian countries who are known for being international arbitration neutralists. So inviting one like that country to arbitrate and find out. So these are the issues. आपकी seriousness तभी दिखेगा. क्रिकेट मैच में हम क्या कहते हैं कि कैच छूट गया, जितना क्राइम नहीं है उतना बड़ा क्राइम है आपने मूवमेंट ही नहीं किया. You have taken the leap, आपके हाथ में बॉल लगा फिर छूट गया. तो हम बेनिफिट ऑफ डाउट गवर्नमेंट को देने के लिए तैयार हैं और ग्लोबल कम्युनिटी देने के लिए तैयार है कि हाउ मेनी व्हाट एफर्ट्स यू हैव टेकन टू रिजॉल्व दिस बॉर्डर इश्यूज. तो ये जरूरी है कि कमिटी बननी चाहिए और ये सारे मेथड्स फॉलो होना चाहिए और एग्रेसिवली परस्यू करना चाहिए. और इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा? अगर ये सॉल्व नहीं होते हैं कभी भी फ्लेयर अप हो सकते हैं और जो थर्ड पार्टी हमें परेशान करना चाहता है वो उसको यूटिलाइज करके हमारे नेशनल इंटरेस्ट के खिलाफ खड़ा कर सकता है. दैट इज आवर प्राइमरी ड्यूटी. सो नेशनल सिक्योरिटी, नेशनल बॉर्डर इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
So two questions Boylochin Behra's answer. I'd like to say that we need to revive our regional groupings, which is missing. Right? So be it South Asian Regional Cooperation or BIMSTEC or IORA or any other things. We have, like if you look at South Asia, there are hardly 8 to 9 countries who are within this particular geographical framework. But we have almost like 5 to 6 regional groupings who are working different platforms. We need a strong regional groupings to deal with regional issues, be it border issues, be it terrorism, be it environmental issues, be it any other issues. Right? The way Prime Minister Modi call multilateral effort during this pandemic by calling everyone by video conferencing, we need such efforts from India. And also there are few strategies who talk about that India should act like a big brother, should avoid using that war and engaging with the neighbors in a different way. And also we should make our decision in that way. So I just want to highlight one issue, that is demonetization issues. Demonetization also costs our neighbors. For example, Nepal, because I had a chance to meet a Nepal delegate where he tried to say that demonetization, they had like almost some $1 million of money, Indian money, the demonetized money with them, and they tried to exchange with Indian governments, and Indian government at that point refused to accept those money. and I think that creates some kind of economic imbalance in Nepal. So, and also the way I'm saying this anecdote here, because when Indian government making some decision, we also look into what will have a retrospective impact or any kind of like adverse impact or what kind of implications it will have to our neighbors or extended borderlands. The second, the such disturbance, the socio-economic, yes, we'll have impact. If there is a crisis, we'll have socio-political and economic impact. And definitely, we have to act more mutually what Prof. More civilized way. So the next question is by Dr. Bhagidhar Sethi. And what is this question like? For decades, India has been able to call on Moscow for support, but analysts are now questioning the wisdom of this relationship amid growing Sino-Russian ties. As China-India tensions rise, can New Delhi rely on Russia as a defense partner? The Professor Das, you take this, then I will have my comments on this particular question.
Bhagavath, I think very important question. You are already you are aware because you are an expert in the Russian relationship. Yes, India has been able to rely upon Russia time and again, but as India's defense requirement has been diversified, India has gone to Israel, gone to France, gone to the United States, gone to Germany for different kinds of support. Russia has not taken this very lightly. Russia has been thinking that India or Russian, you can say, when I'm saying Russia, I'm saying Russian decision makers. So Russian people who actually sell defense equipment to India, which is the Russian government. So the people in the government of Russia have started thinking that India has actually diversified its defense requirement, and we are only selling a particular type of thing. And sometimes Russian weapons and vehicles have been of questionable quality, or have been old, or they have been reassembled. So these questions have been raised about Russia. Russia continues to reinvent and make more capable fighter jets and all that. So anyways, India's interest has been diversified in the post-Cold War era. During Cold War, India was actually only Soviet Russia support, means dependent on Soviet Russia for defense equipment. So your question is this: that what is happening to Sino-Russian ties? Yes, Sino-Russian ties are important, and they are on the rise, and they understand their common enemy is the United States. As far as their global view or global interest goes, because Chinese interest, Russian interest in the global world order. So Putin has been a very strong man, a kind of behavior he's shown in the world order in the last 3, 4, 5 years, in the case of Syria, in other cases as well. So what is the India's situation here? India needs to engage with Russia. One is the existing trust that exists between India and Russia, build on that. Second, convince Russia that we have diversified our requirement, and this Russia is going to play, if not a major role, at least continue to play an important role in defense procurement for India. In this question, I think, in this question is the answer is there is no harm in engaging with Russia, and knowing fully well Russia and China are friends. And this is how Vladimir Putin is able to interfere, perhaps between Xi Jinping and Modi, and bring back some normalcy before the BRICS meet. So I don't see anything wrong in that. But India has to, it's a very balancing work. Foreign policy में, defense में, पैसा खरीदने में, अभी आप एक चीज देखो, फ्रांस भी इंडिया को बढ़ चढ़ के सपोर्ट कर रहा है, supporting everywhere, because France knows India is a big defense partner. Apart from their civilization values, democracy, human rights, all that, there's trust in India. But defense procurement also works. So that is how relations with Israel has also improved. So Russia is sulking. If a sulking Vladimir Putin is there, it's Modi's duty to convince him that saying that we're procuring this, but you are nevertheless you are our long-term partner. So this is what I can understand, because you are an expert on that. You'll be able to give more insight, perhaps.
Yeah, just to add to Professor Das' point, I'd like to say that Dr. Sethi, you had a very thought-provoking question. India is relying on Russia. India and Russia are close partner or natural allies. And also, I like to highlight the last month, India-Russia's agreement on reciprocal exchange logistic agreement, which means India's sea aircraft can now use Russian ports and airports. Right, so that is where you can think about how even if Russia is having close proximity with China and Russia is having close proximity with Pakistan, but in India and Russia relation is still the dominant one. And also, I like to go give some anecdote to here. Like if you look at Russia-China relation, they are never very smooth in that way. Like go back to your Cold War period, where there was clash of interest between Russian leaders and your Chinese leaders. Right. After that, there are classes. Even if post Cold War period, when there was Shanghai Organization Corporation was created, Russia also part of Eurasian Council or Eurasian. There's a Eurasian countries there. Right. So that means there are places where Russia and China they are contesting with each other. Although it's not very much vibrant like Russia and US or China or US, but there are some kind of contestations. And also the way Russia engaged in Pakistan a few years back, was more challenging to India, not Russia, China. And that is the last month China, India, and as very significant boost for India defense. Look at if you look in India, US defense. The US have the permission to use Indian ports and airports, but India has the same rights in US ports and US airports. But India has ties. I think in India-Russia ties. I think this is something very, very commendable job under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. And I think this is where we can say that although there is a tension between India and China, New Delhi is able to enhance or maneuver its relation with its foe, that is Russia. So next question is by how Chinese nationalism overpowers Chinese communism. I think it is other way around. It's Chinese communism who is overpowering Chinese nationalism.
Your voice is breaking.
So why the Chinese nationalism overpowers Chinese communism? For me, it is Chinese communism who overpowers Chinese nationalism. That's my answer. Professor Das, over to you.
No, just one line. I think increasingly there is no difference because communism has assert. So communism become a bigger umbrella term. Nationalism is part of it. So and communism actually wants nationalism to grow. So as a very interesting, interesting observation that someone was making, that communism wants nationalism to grow so that it can thrive. Right? Yeah.
And because your question is very tricky, that is rising nationalism sentiment in India affecting foreign policy. Obviously, it should. There is no point in that. And also, if our foreign policy is more nationalistic in nature, that means we are looking at our own market, we are looking at our own national interest, and we are looking at we're taking seriously our own foreign relations, like the allies and friends and the enemies, right? So there is no harm in rising. And also, if you're looking at the way China, Russia, and Trump, right, the way they are changing their foreign policy, and if India is bringing the nationalistic element within the foreign policy engagement, I think there is no harm in that, right? But also we have to look into that there are few elements which we need to take care at national level. Those, if we are minusing those elements, we're creating some kind of mischief activities within domestic level, and the rest of the fine in the rise of nationalism foreign policy.
One small observation, like Trump doing America first, and then China doing China's expansion, one China policy. Everyone is China. Everyone who is around China is China. So this is, I think, a very weird extension of nationalism and expansive nationalism that absolutely we can say dangerous to health of democracy around the world, dangerous to health of global peace as well. So nationalism is good as long as it remains patriotism, as long as it remains that I want my country, my nation, my community, my people to be at the top level of education, top level of health. So all that is being taken care of at the level, and that interest, how we want to engage with the world. If that civilization ethos and values are represented in that kind of nationalism sounds good. But if a nationalism becomes exclusivist at one level and it becomes protectionist at another level and it disengages with the world at another level and perhaps it actually says, okay, United States has decided now it will not fund several institutions of United Nations. United States has decided it will not fund several institutions of United Nations, just starting with WHO. So like that, so shirking from responsibility, just saying that I'm good, I'm good. But that kind of nationalism has its own repercussions, will not stand for a long time. It is also not in the Hitler, not in the Hitler, Sarvajana Hutta Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya we talk about. So Sarva Bhavantu Sukhina, if we are telling about that, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So India, while feeding its own children, who are hungry, who are not getting 2 square meals a day, who are searching for jobs, who are depressed, who are fighting for their lives, who are committing suicide, where there is violence, tackling the same thing that at one level parallelly has to engage with the world. So whatever minimum resource it can contribute to Africa, to United Nations, to WHO, to other places where a fair engagement is possible, India has to remain as a responsible wildflower, not just influencing, becoming a big brother in the region or beyond, or not just doing its own development at the public policy level. Its foreign policy has to be not expansive but inclusive and towards peace. And the peace is not an empty word. It requires investment. So India has to invest its energy, its resources, its time, it's a science, it's a scientific thinking, and its ability to contribute to society through yoga and meditation and all that is there. So India has this traditional duty to contribute to the world peace and world development. Cannot shirk its responsibility despite being a developing economy and despite being poor in many of the pockets of the state where people struggle for 2 square meals a day.
I think just to
question.
addition to that, because we have to think about 2 words. So it's nationalism and ultra-nationalism. As long as a nation is a national, there is no harm in that. Right? Yeah. Once you cross that level to become an ultra-national like Hitler and Mussolini, that is the challenge, and that is where you call for major conflict and war. I think India is well beyond that, and we are acting as a balance and protecting our national interest. I think there is no harm. But because we are not overriding the constitutional values, we are not overriding the parliamentary form of system. Right? If you're looking at China, they almost end the constitutional rights of their citizens. If you look at Russia, they are the verge of ending the rights of their citizens, the way Putin is trying to remove Duma's power in different foreign policy procedures. So if you're looking at these 2 instances, India is well versed in understanding and serving its national interests in different foreign policy aspects. And there is one question by Mr. Bapi Murli. The recent statement made by former US National Security Advisor that Trump won't back India if India-China tension escalate. Professor Das, how do you see this from the perspective of Indo-US relation when Modi-Trump chemistry is going high?
For 1 second,
before Professor Das jump in, that we don't need Trump or US when we are discussing with India and China, or India or Pakistan. You please don't come here and put your nose in our conflict. Let us to handle our own conflict. Because we are mature enough, we are mature democratic state, we almost cover 75, 80 years of democracy, we can handle our own crisis. We don't need Mr. Trump to come here and tell India you should act like this. Over to you, Professor Das.
I think a good question, but see, Americans classically have been known for giving suggestions and not doing enough at times. they don't follow through their commitments at times. But in for India this time, especially Donald Trump's supportive statement and their administrative supportive statement about China being bullying there, and United States willing to um, deploy a certain segment of its armed forces into the region in case there is India-China escalation happens. So that has been moral boosting. But as Jaydev is right, that we as a sovereign nation, we have to fight our war, we have to find our peace. But when it comes to international relations and engagement with the multilateral forums, we have been one of those very strongly devoted and dedicated member that we actually believe in multilateral forums. So if United States wants to do certain things to support India, it actually has more role to play at the United Nations level, United Nations Security Council level. Why is it not actually doing something against
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
against the Chinese aggression? Against the or perhaps for example, China has a veto, or a okay example, China has a veto, and the United Security Council is a very dysfunctional body. It actually does very little worthwhile at times, does very more damage. So in that context, also you have four other veto power members who are American supporters. So what are you doing against China? Other than big pompous statements that we'll do this, we'll do that. Okay. So anyway, so India, as Rajab said, I agree with him that India, irrespective of support or opposition or neutrality from other members of the world, India will have to fight its own battle, both within India, outside India, which means international and foreign policy, within India, which means public policy. So India is capable, and I appreciate Jaydev, who said that we are mature enough with a developing economy, with a 70-year history of existence, with a constitutional democracy which has shown path to all our policymakers.
I have a question. First of all, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed the talk. Wonderful talk. My question is related to China being a technology leader, and technology being the an integral part of almost everything that we do these days. How do you see, from a point of view of it being a security threat for countries, and in particular India? Well, Indian government has banned the 59 apps, I heard recently, but Chinese companies like Tencent or Alibaba are heavily invested in many other Indian companies, namely PayPal, Flipkart, you name it. Right? They're also heavily invested in the US companies, particularly tech companies. How do you see it as a security threat? Not just security threat, but China's prominence in the technology area.
Okay. So, if I'm not muted, yeah. So, quickly, I think any technology company investing in digital technology uh, will pose a security or cyber security threat. One, any foreign or we can say multinational corporation can pose a cyber security threat to which can lead into data theft and other things as well. National security data theft also possible. So and hacking of financial institutions like RBI or banks like that. That's possible. That is one. Second, let's not be ultra jingoist and ultra nationalist in this era. Uh, I think one company, for example, I have a digital company. I can say this is my company and I am a nationalist and I'm Indian. I am Make in India. So what guarantee that Make in India made company is giving that they are not also doing or they are not posing threat to data privacy? So that debate on data colonialism, which actually the Geo founder Mukesh Ambani started, seems hollow and empty at one level, not a very serious discussion or discourse. Because when Facebook will invest in your company, Geo company, so what kind of end-to-end encryption, what kind of data privacy, what kind of cyber security mechanisms we're adopting, you actually have to give it a public disclosure. You have to give it to the parliament. So, like you might have heard, you might have seen, the U.S. Congress invited Mark Zuckerberg to make presentation to explain whether he was aware about Cambridge Analytica, which actually hacked data from Facebook. So we have to create those mechanisms in India as well. So anyway, to answer that question, threat is there, possibility of controlling, regulating is there. How we are capable to do that, we have to see that. And we are not completely immune from that threat. That threat remains.
I just want to add one point over here is that banning those apps and other things, it's more sentimental during that time rather than it has any other point. So instead of banning all these apps and other things, we can do one thing. We can go the reverse strategic move, calling all these companies to set up a company in India or set up the offices in India, we should be binding as per India's jurisdictions, right? So the second, India should enhance its data protection bill, which is still struggling to get passed by the parliament, right? So if we are doing that, that means if all these companies are situated in India or India's jurisdictions, and if those companies are found that they are doing some kind of act which is misusing our data, in that scenario, India can penalize them, right? And in that scenario, we can also bring in the example of the way GDPR is created in European Union, the way they are penalizing those companies, right? Those are violating those are violating European standards. So India can create a data security or data privacy standards where foreign companies can come to India and they can create their own India-based or Indian offices. And on the basis of that, if they are misusing the Indian data, then Indian government can penalize that. I think that would be having more significant impact. First, in terms of first in terms of creating new jobs. Second, in terms of having more legal restrictions. Third, we can push our two initiatives, that is Digital India or Make in India, or the present day, the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Pani, do you have any other question?
No. Thanks for the answer.
Because
think hello. I think we have adjusted all the questions, and we could wind up the session. Brother. So I think today is my part, as you have been a speaker. So I could end up and wind up the session by thanking Professor Kamala Das sir, who has been very kind enough to give his precious time to Amo Prayas and to enlighten us on foreign policy, India-China relationship. And thank you very much from all of our participants and members, Professor. Would like to hear you in future also. Joydev, you have been excellent. I think personally, you have actually cleared the air from the beginning, that how the evolution of foreign policy took place in India. And thank you for initiating this program. And thanks also goes to Biswajit for making this session YouTube live. And thanks Jairam Samal for inviting Professor Kamalakant sir, if I am not wrong. And I thank all the participants who have spared their valuable time to listen.
There is one question from Subrat Behera. He just called me, and this question for Professor Das. What is this question? Is basically the way Pakistan is managing having good relation with both the superpowers, be it China and US, and also trying to have membership into all major security arrangements that's proposed by US, be it NATO, SATO, and CENTO. So why India is failing in convincing both the superpowers like Russia, in US and China, in getting into these membership clubs and other.
A quick answer to that is India is not failing. India is creating more infrastructure, more structures there. So BRICS is much more high profile. That is one. And China and Pakistan are very client relationship there. Client is a master and slave kind of relationship is there. So Pakistan is not actually Pakistan as a sovereign country. I have great respect as a sovereign country to all sovereign countries. But Pakistan is failing. Pakistan means not the people of Pakistan. Pakistan government is failing Pakistan in many ways of not standing up to China, what China is doing in Xinjiang. Pakistan is talking about worldwide that about Muslim, about like Islamophobia, about minority subjugation, all that it has been talking about human rights violation. What it is doing in Balochistan is not unknown to everyone. So, and what China is doing in Xinjiang is not unknown. But it is not actually questioning China on that. So anyway, these are partnership of convenience, partnership of strategy, where India is the common enemy. So that is one. Second is with the United States, Pakistan has actually lost hope, and United States has lost hope with Pakistan because Musharraf, as the head of the state, actually misused a lot of funds in diverting those funds which were actually meant for fighting terrorism and for de-radicalization, creating good infrastructure for education and health and all that. He actually diverted those funds to to fight the Indian army, and that the funds were diverted to Pakistan army or defense forces. So those allegations are there. So Pakistan doesn't enjoy a great image around the world, either of them. So China is very clear that it knows to use its partners for benefit. So I don't think they are using, Pakistan is getting much more leverage in that global image level because of its unique contribution to the world. So Pakistan is struggling both economically, militarily, internally, and global image-wise. So Pakistan is no competition for India. India should actually get out of this foreign policy, which has it successfully done from the Pakistan obsession.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kamalakant Bhai. I think I was in the middle of winding up the session, and Joydev brought a question. Indeed, this is the beauty of our, I think, discussion, that we could actually take any questions anytime anybody asks. I think after this session also, if anybody wants to ask anything, they are welcome to ask Kamalakant sir and as well as to Joydev. They have been the expert in foreign policy. And for Joydev, I think I was thanking you. You did not listen, so I am again thanking you for your great initiative. And you have cleared the air from the beginning regarding the foreign policy in India.
He made a better presentation than me in the very small time. He made a better presentation than me.
I'm just a student of IR, so and I just made a small step to learn something.
So let me just quickly also thank you, Professor Das, Professor Joydev, and Vishwajit Fani for making it YouTube live, Jaram Singh Samal for inviting Professor Sir, and our founder, no other than Mr. Deepak Kumar Das, who has been very, engaging, and he has engaged all of us to discuss every week. I think Professor Kamala Bhai would like to know that we are discussing many topics. And our main objective is to educate and to learn our participants, basically students. They have been joined with us in this forum, and I think thank you all participants also who have spared their valuable time, and we'll like to meet you in the next 2 weeks with a different topic. And for them, you enjoy your Sunday, and I thank you all from our Amuprayas family member.
Thank you, Bhai. Thank you for the extensive vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.